Welcome in, everybody. It is another week here on the Walkthrough Game Day Show, presented to you by our friends at Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort. And oh, Eugene, it seems like a year ago. It seems like forever ago, and yet it still feels just as painful as it did the moment that it happened in West Virginia, dropping to Houston on the final play of the game in a Hail Mary, the Houston Heave, as I like to call it. And we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that today. We're going to also talk about some of the coaches that may be on a hot seat halfway through the season. We did that last year. It was a pretty good segment that fans like, so we're going to do that again. And yes, we will talk about Neal Brown. So we'll have him saved for last in that segment. And then we're also going to get into our West Virginia-Oklahoma State preview and our picks. So, Gene, let's just get this thing out of the way, okay? Let's talk about Houston and how crazy this game was. We talked about it in the post-game show, and I mean, typically we try to keep those post-game shows to like what, 10, 12 minutes, because in and out we want to get our thoughts up quick. But we went almost 25 minutes, I think, for that one, and it was hard to even keep it to that short because it was just so unbelievable how that game unfolded. In the way that it just played out throughout the entire night. The first half, it felt like West Virginia kind of dominated it, but was trailing at the half. It just felt weird. Second half, it was a lot of back and forth, especially in that fourth quarter. Obviously, Hudson Clement gets the go-ahead touchdown with 12 seconds left, and then we all know what happened. So going back to, let's just rewind it all the way back to the first half, because everyone wants to put their focus on that Hail Mary. And there's a whole lot of other things in that game that happened that we need to probably address. First of all, that first half, you can't go down into the half 14-10. The way you controlled the line of scrimmage, at least offensively, in that first quarter in particular, the way you held the ball, I mean, there's no reason that they should have been trailing when you had the ball as long as West Virginia did.
Well, again, it goes to show you there are a lot of things that happen throughout the course of a football game, as we all know, right? Any sporting event, but especially football. So when you are dominating the clock, I'll put it that way, that means you have multiple opportunities to do a few different things because you're dominating the time, right? That means you're getting some first downs, you're doing some really good things, you're moving the ball up the field. There is a disconnect, there is a missing piece that for some odd reason, Schuyler, we have yet to put this together with this particular ball club and this particular coaching staff. Now, I'm critical on coaches in general because I've always said this. If you're the head coach, and you have a really decent staff, typically they're following your lead. Offense, defense, special teams, a whole nine. Okay. For you to dominate the clock the way that we did and not have points on the board to show our dominance of the clock, there is a missing piece. So I'm looking at that game, and at half, the score should have been 21-7 in favor of WVU.
Yeah.
It should have been that. At least, let's say 21-10 to be fair. That should have been the score. West Virginia 21, Houston 10. If that score is 21-10, the game changes in complexity the third and fourth quarter. It really does. Because then you're doing things a little bit differently. So I'm critical of where we are because the game should have never came down to a freaking Hail Mary. We didn't lose the game on that Hail Mary. We didn't.
No. And they didn't lose it because of Garrett Green taking his helmet off. Now, again, these things are losing actions, right? Garrett Green taking his helmet off, getting the penalty, that is a thing that had an influence on the game. Certainly gave them much better field position on the kickoff, allowed them to get that Hail Mary position. But who knows what could have happened. If they didn't get that penalty, maybe they returned the kick a little bit further, or maybe they just hook and ladder their way all the way in. We have no idea. What we do know is that there was a lot of things that led up to that moment that West Virginia had control of, and they couldn't execute. Okay, Garrett Green put the ball on the dang money, Gene, on the dang money to Jalen Anderson, and I get He's a running back, but you are running back too, and you would probably be the first one to say, look, it doesn't matter if you're a running back or receiver. If that ball hits you in the hands or in the chest, you've got to come up with that ball. That is a touchdown. That is a 14, at worst, 10-point swing.
Swing, right.
So he goes from a touchdown to an interception to 3 or 4 plays later, Houston's in the end zone. And I think, for me, at least, it didn't feel like West Virginia came out with the same fire, the same energy, the same confidence that we had seen in previous weeks. Is that because of the bye week? Is that because of the bye week and they're playing Dana and the opposing, team that had, 4 former Mountaineers on it? Or is it because all of that plus there was nobody in the stands and they didn't have any energy to feed off of? You can make a million excuses in the world, but it doesn't matter. You got to find a way if you're going to be a team that competes for a Big 12 title. Again, no one expected this team to be in the Big 12 race at the end. I didn't. I don't even think you did. But when you're 4-1, all of a sudden those expectations, they change a little bit. And if you're going to be a team that plays deep into November having a chance, what did we say last week on this very show, Eugene? They have to beat teams like Houston. There's no questions asked. You have to beat the teams that you were supposed to beat in this conference if you're going to have a chance at it.
Not only you're going to have to beat teams in this conference that, like a Houston or whatever, that you should beat, the bottom line is this. Each week should not be a scratch your head aha moment. And what I mean by that is you scratch your head and say, aha, we knew we were going to do something wrong to screw this up. It shouldn't be that week in and week out. There has to be some consistency. I say success is all about being consistent, doing the things that you need to do in business, sports, and otherwise in order to be successful. We're not consistent in any one thing.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. Going back to some of the things that happened throughout the game, I don't care if there were 2 freaking people in the stands. I'm telling you, I'm not an excuse guy.
Create
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
bring the juice, man. You have to be juiced up to play. First off, it's a blessing to play this game to begin with. Let's start off with that, Schuyler. So again, I don't care if there's 2 people in eight cheerleaders in the freaking parking lot. I don't care. Don't tell me you need energy to feed off of. The fact that you can put that helmet on and wear that freaking uniform is juice and energy enough. That was a game that we should have went to Houston and thoroughly thumped Houston. They're not a good football team, let me be clear. So if they're not a good football team and we lose to them, then what does that make us? And we're not that. That's what ticks me off. We are a far better football team than Houston, and this is the reason why we should not have lost to Houston. This week we should be talking about WVU, our Mountaineers are 5-1.
And in the top 25.
And in the top 25 instead of 4-3. And we're on the outside doing this.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not with all of that, man. No.
And
I'm not an excuse guy. I'm sorry.
And this is something that a few fans that are avid listeners of the show that have pointed out to me. And, I didn't really think about it until they brought it up. Neal has always been a guy that has, told his team, hey, look, don't look at what people are saying. I don't read the press clippings. I don't watch what you guys say, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it seems like all he's done this year is the complete opposite of that. He said, 14, 14, 14. Yes, and I understand that's 100% okay to drill that into your players' minds, right? Like, that's fine. But for him to do it during the bye week was a little odd to me. Like, for him to sit there and say, we should have been in the top 25. Who cares? It's week 6, week 7. Who gives a crap if you're ranked at that point? If you're supposed to be ranked by the end of the season and you're supposed to be where you want to believe or you believe your team should be, you'll be ranked. But you have to do something to earn that ranking. You're not just going to get ranked because you're 4-1 and you beat TCU, who has 3 losses. You beat Texas Tech, who has 4 losses. You have to go out and prove it. You have to beat somebody with a number beside their name, which may not come for a few weeks until you get your crack at Oklahoma, or you've got to win the games that you're supposed to win, like Houston. And I'm telling you now, like they were still, what, 5 or 6 places outside of the top 25 before that
Right.
loss to Houston. Boy, oh boy, Gene, they're going to have a mighty old time getting into the top 25 now because, like I said, one, they don't have top 25 opponents coming up on their schedule. And two, your two losses, Penn State, Houston, one you can kind of forgive, but the other one, that's a tough one to forget.
Listen, you know what's so devastating with this situation right here? The Houston loss kind of puts things in real perspective, real time.
Yeah.
That's an interesting piece where he feels as though we should have been ranked in the top 25, sitting outside, during the bye week. Imagine if we were 4-1 and in the top 25, and then you lose to freaking Houston.
Yeah.
Then that gives people the ammunition to say, this is why we don't take West Virginia football serious, under Coach Brown's leadership, because they should have never been ranked to begin with.
Yeah.
That's a really scary conversation to have because you don't get 2 and 3 chances to win back, fans that don't think you should be in the top 25 to begin with in the first place. So you have to win games, period. We may not be ranked if we were freaking 6-1 just because of the schedule. And people think that right now our conference is kind of down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's
And
what
I
they're
mean,
thinking. Yeah.
and I think if you're new, you can't be worried about that stuff, man. Like
No.
you can't. You've got to go out there and earn that respect. And to be
Right.
honest with you, no one after not being ranked for 5 years. That's the last time West Virginia was ranked was when Dana Holgorsen was here. West Virginia's never had a number beside their name under Neal Brown ever. So if you're going to want to get that number beside your name, you're going to have to do more than just a 4-1 start with a win over Duquesne and then 3 Big 12 or 3 wins that no one really thinks that are all that impressive. Like you've got to actually go out and earn that ranking, and it's hard to gain that trust if you're just 4-1 and there's no big win there. So
Yeah.
we'll curb the Neal Brown stuff for now. And we'll also go ahead and flip the page on this Houston one. Well, actually, last thing here before we get into the hot seat stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because it is kind of relevant to this week. When you lose a game like that, to me, and I think I said this in the post game, it's either one of two things, right? You're either going to make this moment kind of fuel you and put you on a tear to where no one wants to be on those tracks when this train's coming through,
Right.
or you're going to be a dead duck and everyone's going to be ready to plow right through you because you're not able to respond. Everything with this game has response written all over. How does this team respond? Life is all about responding. Things aren't fair. Things are always going to be unlucky, it seems like. It's always going to go against you. How do you treat this moment? Do you want to be a championship team? Because to be honest with you, like the championship is still within reach, right? The path is still there if you want to take that path. You have one Big 12 loss. There's still a
Right.
lot of football left. There's 7 conference games left or 6 conference games left. You can do anything that you want to do, but you've got to bury this game. So how hard and how difficult is it for somebody in that building to move on from that game and move on to this next
I got to be honest with you. It depends on if they believed in the first place. Because
one? I like that.
that's right. It depends on how many guys really believed in the first place and are not just faking it just for the sake of faking it,
Or
right?
not just feeling like, oh, let's see how long this goes before it just falls apart. Like they're
Right.
waiting for the collapse. If you're waiting for the collapse, then it's over.
It's not going to work because you're going through the motions, right? So that's a valid point. This should burn, and it should still burn. I don't believe in. Look, you lose a game that you should have won. That thing you might lose sleep this
Oh yeah,
entire week.
I know a lot of people lost sleep.
Well, yeah, exactly. Me included. But I got to be completely honest with you. At the end of the day, Here's where you really have to check your mettle and test your mettle a little bit. Yeah, this has every bit to do with redemption. It's time to get up off the mat, so to speak. I took a good shot. Now let me see. They tested my chin. All right, I'm back up. Let me see what I have in my tank now to show that was nothing. We brushed it off because you go out and you do what you're supposed to do at home against Oklahoma State. Now you feel you're back in the saddle a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be, look, Oklahoma State's a good football team. All right. I don't care
They
what their
are.
record is. They're a good football team. So you got to get past this Houston thing, put it, in your rearview mirror a little bit, but also learn from the mistakes and don't do that again. You have to learn. This is a learning moment, a teachable moment. That's what you use this Houston game for. This is a teachable moment. Let's learn from this. Still feel the pain in your gut, but learn from it.
Yeah, because there's nothing you can do about it at this point, right? It's in the past. There's nothing you can do to change the outcome. The only thing you can do is control the outcomes that lie ahead, right? So
absolutely.
Let's go ahead and move into our hot seat segment. And this is one I always look forward to every year. We do this kind of at the midway point of the year, taking a look at some of the coaches around the country that may or may not be feeling the pressure from the fan base, from some of those around college football. And yes, we will bring up Neal Brown. Like I said earlier, we're going to hold him for the end of this segment just so you can see some of the other people we have on here first. We want to keep you around just a little bit longer, just in case you're wanting to jump out of here. But who would want to jump out of this show? You're having too much fun. So let's get started with Boston College head coach Jeff Hafley, Gene. And this is your guy, Jeff Hafley. You like Jeff?
Absolutely.
Year 4 up there in BC's 18-23. So what we're going to do, and we want you guys to interact with us too. We're going to go cold, warm, hot, and blazing hot on this little hot seat meter that'll show up here on your screen. In the comments section, let us know what you think the hot seat meter should be for these teams, or to make it easier, like Eugene was suggesting before we start taping, rank these 5 guys 1 through 5, who is going to feel the most pressure, or who should feel the most pressure right now, 1 being the one that has the most pressure, 5 and being the least. So let us know who you think in the comments here on YouTube. So Jeff Hafley, for me, I'm going to surprise you a little bit here, Gene. I think it's cold. And the reason I say that is because Boston College is in a tough situation. They're not a team that historically is going to bring in, top tier talent. They're not a team that's really going to be able to bring in a coach with a huge resume, right? That's got a long history of success. And if you look at some of their losses, like the 3-point loss to Northern Illinois, yeah, they barely beat Holy Cross, but they bounced back and almost beat Florida State. I just think it's cold right now. And you look at the remaining schedule, there's a lot of winnable games. Georgia Tech, UConn, Syracuse, beat Virginia Tech, Pitt, Miami. There's still a chance this team gets to 6 wins. And I think it's kind of like a Neal Brown situation a year ago, where at the end of this season, everyone's probably going to think Jeff Hafley should be out of there, but I think they're going to give him another year.
Jeff Hafley is a great guy, and he is a good football coach. I can tell you that right now. I have nothing but the utmost respect for this man. I'm going to say warm. And the reason why I'm going to say warm is, although BC does not have, from a football standpoint, they don't have the resume of what their expectations would be as if you are, even in their conference, like a Clemson or a Florida State, a North Carolina. They're more in that NC State piece where you expect them to be competitive and you expect them to win at least 6 games, go bowling every year, at least win 6 games. Here's my issue. If you are trying to take the next step within your conference, the ACC, correct? You're trying to get to the next level. You can't get to the next level when each year you're kind of lukewarm and you're struggling against lesser competition where you're not really beating them by 10 points or more.
Yeah.
That shows you where you are talent-wise. You can't be on the same level as some of these teams that they're playing that they should be beating by 10, 13, 14 points. No. You are still Boston College. You're still in the ACC. You still can recruit. So that's why I say, warm.
So
Not
warm
like
for Jeff Hafley.
Warm. Yeah.
I could
and that's
see
my
it.
guy.
I could see it. Going to the Big 12. This one's an interesting one. Baylor, Dave Aranda. He won the Big 12 conference in year 2 down there. Went 12-2 that year. And since then, they were 6-7 last year. They're 2-4 now. And they are this close to being 1-5 if they didn't have that crazy comeback at the end in Orlando against UCF. I'm going to say warm. No, I'm going to take that up a little bit. Let's go hot. I think it's hot. It's not quite blazing hot, but I think it's right there at the edge of warm and hot, leaning toward more hot, because Baylor's got a tough stretch here here in their final 6 games or so. Cincinnati on the road, Iowa State, Houston, Kansas State, TCU, and of course West Virginia. I don't know if they can get 4 of those 6 games in their favor and get to bowl eligibility. And if they don't, 2 straight years of not making a bowl game.
Yeah.
Or actually, no, they made the bowl game last year and they lost the bowl game. But 2 years where you have losing seasons in a row after winning the Big 12, I don't know. That's getting a little too hairy. I'm going to say hot for Dave Aranda.
I'm going to agree with you. And the reason why Baylor, unlike BC, is different because, listen, anything in Texas, when you're talking about sports, is over the top. So Baylor has a different expectation as to what their football program, what their basketball programs, what their track programs look like. The expectation is different. Right from the gate, it's just different. So I would think the fan base is looking for, they probably went into this season thinking, you know what? We can get at least 8 wins.
Yeah.
We should be at least an 8-win ball club. So to see where they are now, I don't know if you get to 6 wins with what they have coming down the pike. It's going to be real difficult to do that. And he's a good coach, but the expectations from the fan base and from the alumni and the donors, man, that's a different deal. So I'm going to say this. It's hot, but if he doesn't get to a bowl game and win a bowl game, yeah, they may be. There's probably going to be 2 or 3 U-Hauls outside that house, man. And I hope not, because I like him. I do. I like him. I think he's a good coach. But that's the reality of where we are in big-time college football.
Speaking of big-time college football, SEC, West Virginia guy, Jimbo Fisher down there at Texas A&M. They give him this big contract. I don't even remember what it was, 10 years and $100 million, something like ridiculous. That. And now they're in this situation where since they gave him that contract, they haven't really done anything. And just seems like they're just stuck in the mud here. They're like 9 and 8 wins constantly. Last year they were 5-7. This year they're 4-3. They're hovering around 500 again. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I say it's a little blazing hot down there, Gene.
Brother?
I say it is blazing hot because, look, I know the payout or the buyout, whatever, it's going to be massive, but Texas A&M is not going to sit idly by while everybody else is lifting their program. If they feel like Jimbo Fisher is not the guy, they're going to pay that money. They've got the money to do it.
Buns are toasted.
We'll have to add a new thing on the meter for that one.
Toasted buns. I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's blazing. Listen, matter of fact, they probably call every fire department within that area. Okay, because, dude, you're 100% right. That's different. That's just such a different level of expectations. When you're paying that kind of money, no, you're not looking for that kind of money. You're talking about 11-1, 10-2. Period. You go in there with nine wins? What
They had the best
nine?
recruiting class.
Which brings about another level. There's levels to this. It brings about another level of pressure because you have no excuse now. You
Yeah.
have the talent in there. So what's the problem? You got the talent, you got the facilities. It's a beautiful place to go play. It's big time. What's the problem? You got a coach who has a gazillion dollars, so you know he shouldn't be going anywhere, and we can't get 10 to 11 wins. Nobody toasted. Your buns is toasted.
Last
Blazing.
last one before we get to Neal. Shane Beamer down there, South Carolina, 7-6, 8-5, and now 2-4.
Mm.
It felt like this was a year where they were going to maybe turn the corner, be a player in the SEC East a little bit with Spencer Rattler being back, and it's just not gone well for them. I'm gonna say it's warm, but South Carolina to me, like yes, they've hired coaches and fired coaches and stuff like that. I get it, but I think for whatever reason they feel strong about Shane Beamer, and I
Yeah.
don't know that they want to give up on him after 3 years. I'm going to say it's a little warm. It's building, but I think next year's the year where if it doesn't turn, it's going to be a Jimbo situation.
I'm with you on that. Listen, you already know. I have, like everybody else should and would, I have a great deal of respect for the Beamer family, period.
Yeah,
Um, I'm with you. It's warm. I was going to say cold to warm because you got to give him a chance to really, he's not in the same situation as the other guys. He's still building,
yeah,
believe it or not. And you say South Carolina football, he's still building, he's still putting the pieces together. He's about one good recruiting class away from filling out the roster the way that he wants to fill out that roster. So I'm with you. I think at the end of this season, going into next season, you start to get that feeling like, okay, all right, now this next year should be the year where we get at least 8 wins. We should have 8 wins. Now after that, all right, now,
yeah.
all right, we're gonna
Results got
start
to
grilling.
start coming.
All right. Let's get a little bit of smoky in here.
So for one guy, it could get a little smoky, or the smoke could just go completely away, and that's West Virginia's Neal Brown. This is a year where he completely entered the year on a hot seat and kind of sizzled that thing out a little bit with the 4-1 start. You lose last week to Houston the way you did. You could say, well, it's just a fluke thing, and maybe they should, not be talking about this as a topic because Neal's still exceeding expectations, and that's right. I mean, he has been. You tell me 6 games into the season before the year started, they're 4-2, 2-1 at Big 12. I'm like, okay, something's cooking here. I'm gonna say cold, but this thing can change, man. Like it could change in a heartbeat like that. It could change as soon as Saturday, going from cold to hot, skipping warm. But I'm gonna say cold now because again, if you tell me preseason they're 4-2, 2-1, I'm like, yeah, that's showing progress. But this thing can change by Saturday. It could change from week to week. It's really hard to gauge it because I think we're not really going to know until maybe the next to last week of the season where he really is.
I'm gonna say warm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
I like
warm
it. I like it.
because right now there's been too many question marks on too many questions about his ability to coach, his ability to get players fired up, his ability to develop talent. There's been too many questions throughout his time in Morgantown. So yes,
Sure.
although you starting off with a 4-1 start, excellent, far superseded where we would be at this stage of the season. But because of all of the stuff coming into the season, that's not going to be enough to put him at. Nah, bro, it's warm. It and it'll quickly go from warm to blazing within the next 3 weeks, starting with Oklahoma State at home this weekend. It can easily go from, like I said, from warm to blazing. I'm going to give them within these next 3 weeks to see where we are at that point. But I'm going to say warm.
I think, like I said, I think it's reasonable, right? I mean, when you lose a game like that after 4 years of struggle, it's hard to really gain the trust with the fans that everything's going to be okay and everything's going to turn around. You're going to be back to where you were and get back on track. So I completely get it. So again, let us know what you think. List those coaches 1 to 5, or you could just flat out tell us, Neal Brown, you're blazing, you're cold, whatever, in the
Mm-hmm.
comments section on YouTube. But we're going to go and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk West Virginia, Oklahoma State. Eugene's going to give us pregame speech, and then we're going to get into our pick'ems for the week. So we'll be back here right after this. Do you have dirty air ducts? Is your dryer vent plugged up? Well, odds are you probably don't know the answer to that question. Fortunately for you, we know a guy. Give Justin at Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning a call at 304-639-3395 for your free home evaluation. That's 304-639-3395. Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this week's game. It is West Virginia, Oklahoma State, 3:30 on ESPN. And Eugene, this is a much more difficult game than maybe it looked like a week ago, or most certainly than it did 2 weeks ago, and really 3 or 4 weeks ago when they dropped 33 to freaking 7 at home to South Alabama. So this game looks all the more challenging, and I'm a fool because I wrote Mike Gundy and this team off after that loss to South Alabama because heading into the season, I said, look, Oklahoma State, they don't have that premier go-to guy at receiver like we always are accustomed to them having. They don't really have that go-to proven running back that they had. They had musical chairs. It was a turnstile at quarterback. They were playing 3 different guys at the position. They just didn't look good. They didn't look like they had any answers. And now all of a sudden, of course, right? They win 2 games entering this week against West Virginia, against Kansas State and Kansas. They settle on a quarterback, and all of a sudden, Mike Gundy's got this team trending in the right direction once again.
It's Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy is a heck of a football coach. Now,
Yeah.
I told you he was a heck of a quarterback. We played against him my sophomore year in the Sun Bowl.
87, right?
It was 87. And let me tell you something. What a competitor. I remember him being exactly that. What
did he still have the mullet back then?
Yes, he did. But when I tell you, I've always had a great deal of respect for him as a ball coach, as a motivator, as a leader. You understand? So all of those attributes and qualities that he had as a player, he has as a coach. So nothing surprises me with Mike Gundy in his ball club. He knows how to get the best out of every position on his roster and every player on his roster. Nothing surprises me with that guy. You know, I'll be honest with you. I'm quietly a Mike Gundy fan because I like the way he goes about his business.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's unreal. Like, it seems like I've been saying this for 2 or 3 years in a row where just on paper alone, it doesn't look like Oklahoma State's going to be a player. Like they look like a 5 to 6 win team. They always overperform. They get to 8, 9 wins. And some Oklahoma State fans, they're not even happy with that. But I mean, it's still, I mean, that's the expectation he's built there, right? It's win 10 games a year. He's done it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, like if you start peeking ahead, and we're allowed to do this because 1, it's not West Virginia, and 2, we're not playing. You look at their schedule, there's a chance, Gene, that they could get to 9 wins. And if they get to a bowl game and win that, it's another 10-win season. And I mean, it's crazy to think after that loss, embarrassing loss to South Alabama. It's not like they lost like they did a few years ago to Central Michigan on that crazy play on the Hail Mary. They got beaten soundly, 33-7. But you look at the schedule. They got, obviously, West Virginia. Then they go back home for Cincinnati, Bedlam at home, the last game against Oklahoma on the schedule. Don't tell me that ain't going to mean a little something to them. They're ticked off about Oklahoma leaving. Then they got Central Florida, Houston, and BYU. Those are a lot of winnable games on that schedule.
All winnable games. All winnable games. Even look, far be it for me to even the Oklahoma game with them is a winnable game.
Yeah.
Just because of the bad blood and the rivalry. So, you know,
and how many times
those 2 play.
And how many times have we looked at that Bedlam game and said, oh my gosh, this year Oklahoma's just going to run right over them? And it never happens. At least it
Absolutely.
doesn't seem like it. Now, I could be wrong if I go back and look, but it just doesn't seem like it. But specifically speaking, this game, talking about their offense, obviously, like I said, they went through a little bit of a turnstile at quarterback. They put in three different guys. They finally settled on Alan Bowman. If the name sounds familiar, well, that's because he started for Texas
Right.
Tech in 2018 against Will Greer. That's how long this Joker's been in college football. So I thought he was their clear cut guy back in the spring whenever he transferred. For whatever reason, they went through that whole deal with the quarterbacks. They finally settled. They finally find some rhythm offensively, and he has played well. Last week against Kansas, he threw for 336 and 2 touchdowns, no picks, played a clean game. And I mean, we've always said, since he was a true freshman, this kid's got arm talent. He's a big
Yeah,
kid. He can fit the ball in tight spaces, and if they can protect, he's going to be an issue for West Virginia this Saturday.
absolutely. And once again, he's being developed and coached by a former quarterback who knows what it feels like, what it is to play these big time games, these big time matchup games. You can get no better than that. You
Yeah.
can get no better than that. So he'll be ready. And again, that's what I mean. Like that team will be ready to come into Morgantown and be ready to play. You understand? We have to turn up the heat and let them understand it's not going to be their day. That's our job. They're going to come in ready to do their job. Trust me. Gundy's going to have them ready.
And the way West Virginia played defensively last week, like Neal said it, I think in his post game and in his presser on Monday, that was the worst performance they had all year against Houston. And it's not even close. Like the first half against TCU, they missed a ton of tackles, but they responded, right? And it looked like they were going to do that against Houston. They came out, got the 3 and out, and it looked like they were going to make that same adjustment, but it just didn't happen. So many missed tackles. They weren't getting pressure on the quarterback. I think I'll have to look this up, but I think they had only one quarterback hit on Donovan Smith. And this is a team that has applied pressure on the quarterback all season long. A big part of that is because Dre Lathan is not here. He's injured.
Right.
He's out for
Yeah.
the year.
Yeah.
Redshirt freshman. No one saw this coming. And he was probably and arguably their best pass rusher at linebacker. So they got to figure out how to replace that talent. But I think it all starts up front. Mike Lockhart, Eddie Vestorinen, Sean Martin, those guys have to get push, allow Ben Cutter and Lee Koba to do some things from that second level. Because Oklahoma State, look, that offensive line was horrendous to begin the season. They rotated guys at different spots. Now they're
Right.
settling in. They're starting to find their rhythm up front. And it seems like that's becoming a little bit of a strength for them as the season moves on. So this is going to be a tough challenge. They've got to dominate that line of scrimmage.
You have to. You have to win the line of scrimmage, period. And you got to, I'm going to tell you something that's funny about, the length of a football game, whatever the case may be. You got to win the line of scrimmage at least for 3 quarters. At least for 3 quarters. Because what's going to wind up, it evens itself out after a while. Once you get
Sure.
settled and the game, gets going, but you have to win the line of scrimmage. If we don't do that, it's going to be made for a long freaking day at home because Oklahoma State is so interesting. And when you watch them through the years, they always come up with a big play in special teams. They always seem to get a turnover where they turn that turnover into points, be it 3 or 7 points. And again, that's because they are a well-coached football team. So they're going to make you do some things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And for them, that's Oklahoma State ball. That's what they do. We have to limit that stuff, man. And the only way you can do that for us defensively, you have to control the line of scrimmage and win it versus their offensive line, and then counter that when we're on offense, we have to neutralize their defensive line and take control of the ground game and the clock and continue to move the chains. So that's how you play against a well-coached team. I don't care what their record is. They can win games because they are well-coached.
The one guy that really sticks out to me, and it probably is the same for everybody else, and that's running back Ollie Gordon. Last week, he became the first player in Oklahoma State history since Mike Gundy played to have 100 yards receiving and 100 yards rushing in the same game. He had 168 on the ground in a score and 116 receiving in a score. 6'1", 210, 215 pound back. This is a big physical kid, hard to bring down to the ground. He's not easy to tackle. And for a team that didn't tackle well last week, that's a little bit of a red flag.
Well, we're talking about responding, right? You got to respond. So here's the beauty of that. I look at these things as opportunities, Schuyler. I really do. I don't look at pitfalls. I don't look at getting knocked down as I'm going to stay there. I look at them as opportunities. This is a great opportunity for us to come back and respond in the way that we need to defensively to show that whatever happened against Houston was Houston. We moved on from that, and we're going to show you that we moved on from that. We're going to tackle better, and we're going to get him before he gets started.
Yeah.
Put a hat on him before he actually gets started, because he's a big physical guy that can run downhill. And what I like about him is he's a little shifty to be as big as he is.
A little wiggle.
He got a little wiggle with him. You know what I'm saying? So you got to get a hat on that kid before he really gets rolling. Because if he gets rolling, guess what? Now you got to make business. You got to make a business decision when you want to hit this guy.
Yeah, just like a lot of teams think when C.J. Donaldson gets in that open space. It's kind of a similar thing. A little bit different styles, but yeah. So defensively for West Virginia, Aubrey Burks, safety. Game time decision, it looks like. Neal has his press conference, or not his press conference, his radio show later tonight at Kegler, so maybe he provides an update there. But as of now, it's a game time decision. I'm assuming it'll probably be that on Saturday. I don't think there's going to be much of a change there. Offensively, West Virginia last week found some success through the air, Gene. Garrett Green, 20 of 38, 391, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Obviously, the pick's not on him. That's completely on Jalen Anderson. But, man, oh, man, that is a sight to see, right? That is a beautiful sight if you're Neal Brown in this Mountaineer offense, because, look, even though you lost the game, you can take some positives out of this and say, hey, we don't have to win ugly every week anymore. We don't have to do that. We don't have to win games 17-13 or 20-14, 21-17. We can win these games if they happen to get in those types of shootouts where it gets into the 30s, it gets into the 40s like it did last week, because, to be honest, they should have won the game last week, and they scored 39 points. So you found some answers in the passing game. Devin Carter played well. They finally moved him around to different spots on the field, and that seemed to be effective. Hudson Clement obviously made some catches. Preston Fox made a nice catch. E.J. Horton, Cole Taylor. I mean, just guy after guy after guy came up, made plays, contested catches, and Garrett Green put the ball on the money time and time again.
I was very impressed and very happy for him, to be honest with you. Very happy for him. I think he played – that's probably the best, obviously, he's played as a pure quarterback, being able to go through progressions and get the ball out and do the things he needs to do. A 400 for me, rounded up, a 400-yard passing day. Listen, you can't beat that. You can't sneeze at that. And like you said, the pick wasn't his fault. So to build on that, now I'm looking for us to do something very similar in the air game, in putting the ball down the field, throwing the football against Oklahoma State, because we've already done it. We know we can do it. That's the confidence that he needs to be able to move the ball, to matriculate the ball down the field. Yeah, I'm feeling good about that. And he should be feeling good about that. Let's not go backwards. Yeah. So he put up almost 4 bills last week. Then he should be able to put up 3 bills this week, because we're going to need that to be a very ready Oklahoma State ball club. And I think we can do that if we're sound in the passing game and we're really stout in the running game.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of you have to be careful here with this, because you don't want to fall in love with the pass, because that's not technically who you are. That's not what your identity is. Your identity is still to run the football behind those big boys up front and play bully ball. You got C.J. Donaldson, who's getting, again, into that territory where he hasn't been before, but that's still your nature. That's what you want to do, is run the ball, control the clock, and lean on that offensive line. But I still think, though, again, you want to be able to mix the pass game in. You want to take some more shots downfield, whether it be intermediate or deep, and make those plays happen. Because guess what, Gene? It's obvious, right? You make plays downfield in the passing game. It opens up things in the run game. because now teams aren't loading up the box with 7 or 8 guys. A lighter box means easier day for CJ Donaldson and company. So I do think we'll see more throwing. I think we'll see more shots downfield. But if you're Neal Brown, you have to be careful not to get to a point to where you're not being who you're meant to be.
So let me go ahead and clear this up for you. Coach Brown was calling the plays, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't think you have to worry about that.
That is true.
I think what I'm saying is getting the ball down the field with the opportunity to have big plays.
It's pivotal.
Is what we need. I'm not saying throw the ball 40 times because you're right. That's just not our identity at this particular point. But you got to get the ball down the field because you got to loosen. You don't want Oklahoma State to put 8 in the box.
Yeah. That's not going to be a good day.
No.
So West Virginia has scored 16 points in these last 2 home games against Oklahoma State, 3 and then 13 in the games that Neal Brown has coached against the Pokes here in Morgantown. So I have a feeling, Gene, they're probably going to need to score a little bit more than 13 points in this one. And again, it goes back to having a fine balance with the pass and the run. And also, I want to mix in a little bit of special teams right here real quick. Last week, that was a big, big reason why they lost the game, right? They gave up the kickoff return touchdown. Guys were all out of their lanes, and they almost gave up another return for a touchdown. There are some serious things that need to be cleaned up there. And usually that's not been a weak point for this team under Neal Brown. They've been fairly solid in special teams, but they've got to get those things cleaned up before this weekend against Oklahoma State. So, Eugene, go ahead and fire me up, my friend.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. And I was thinking about this, getting ready for this particular part of the segment, right? We talked about responding. This is a great opportunity to respond against a really good competitive ball club. But right now, I don't care about them. This is about us. This is about truth and facts. Truth and facts. If I give you the truths about what we need to do to win this football game and it's layered with facts, then that's how we're going to win this football game. Get up front with that big arm we have, and let's play ball against Oklahoma State and show them what we're made out of. And let's take the backs and run down the field, and we're going to get 4 to 5 yards a carry. Let's just say that's a truth. Now, it should be layered in facts because we know we can do that. Let's go into the passing game, shall we? We have a quarterback that can really throw the football if we give him the opportunity to throw the ball and we put him in the right play call. 3rd and short, 2nd and short, opportunities for him to open the playbook up a little bit more, feel comfortable. That's a truth. And the facts is, we saw what happened last week. He was able to do just that. Now let's go to the special teams. We didn't do diddly squat poo last week. We were out of our lanes. We were undisciplined. We couldn't tackle nobody, right? We couldn't block anybody. This week, here you go. We have a chance to respond. We have a chance to respond and do what we need to do. So I'm calling on my special team. I'm calling on my gunners when we are kicking the ball off to make some freaking plays, because we can. The facts are, we got guys that are hungry and just foaming at the mouth on special teams. Now this is a great opportunity to make some plays. And against Oklahoma State, we're going to do just that. So in my closing, make me believe that we can come out in our stadium in the great state of West Virginia, do what we need to do, make sure that people know we got to get back into the win column, and what a great opportunity. Oh my God. You're coming to West Virginia. You're bringing Oklahoma State into our house. We don't lose at home, man. Not when you're playing against this type of caliber of competition. Let's go, Mountaineers. Let's get this win. And that way, not only would it be truthful, it'll be factual when the smoke clears, Schuyler, and it reads West Virginia 35, Oklahoma State 24. Whoa, it gets no better than that. Let's go Mountaineers.
Man, I need to get my pads, my helmet. I need to get my mouthpiece because I'm ready to go, Gene. I mean, you are the perfect man for that segment. I tell you what. Holy cow. Unbelievable.
I love it. I love it. You got me over here sweating. Oh,
yeah.
I might run from New Jersey to Morgantown.
I'll meet you there. I'll be there Saturday. So let's go ahead and get into our weekly pick'ems here, Gene. And rough week for both of us last week, 2 and 3 for each. And we actually picked, mostly the same. But you're 15 and 15 on the year. I'm 14 and 16. Look, the records are terrible. We admit that. But we have picked harder games this year to make it a little bit more challenging for us. Last year, we kind of gave some easy ones for us. We're making it difficult this year to see how good we really are. Well, we're finding out we're not that great. But anyways, we're still doing it for fun. Let's go ahead and get into it. Top 10 matchup on the road. And before I do this, again, submit your picks below here on the YouTube comment section. Let us know who you got. If you get all 5 right, guess what? You're getting a signed autograph picture from that man right there, Eugene Napoleon. And by the way, we've already had one winner, and that is Trey Sargent. You have not reached out to us yet to claim your prize. Email us, and we will get that to you. So, kicking it off, number 7, Penn State. At number 3, Ohio State, 12 p.m. on Fox. Whew, this is a tough one. Penn State's a dang good football team. Ohio State hasn't necessarily been as sexy as they have been in years past, right? They look like a team that's vulnerable, look like they could lose a game even at home. You know what? James Franklin, he tore up that reporter a week or so ago about asking that uncomfortable question. He's been running up the score on people. I think it's time he gets a taste of his own medicine. I'm going Ohio State big here in the Horseshoe.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a difficult pick for me because I like that staff over there. I got family members on that staff pretty much over there.
You do.
I'm gonna go with Ohio State. I'm not gonna go as out there with the bravado of big, but I'm gonna go with Ohio State. It's tough, but I'm gonna pick Ohio State. I'm going with Ohio State with this one. I agree with you.
All right. Well, speaking of family ties, I wanted to throw this one in there for you. How about this, Gene? Rhode Island at Albany. 3:30 this weekend. And if you don't know, Eugene's son, Brandon, former West Virginia defensive back, he is a coach on the Rhode Island coaching staff. So I'm going to go Albany. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going Rhode Island here. I'm going with the Rams. I got to go with B-Nap. And because if I didn't, he'd kill me, right? He'd send me a text as soon as he saw this. But yeah, I'm going to go with B-Nap and the Rhode Island Rams.
You already know. Come on, man. Let's go Rams. Let's go Rams. Listen, it's going to be a heck of a football game now. Albany has a good ball club.
They need to win. They need to keep these wins going.
They need this win. Let's go Rams. I'm going to Rhode Island. You already know it.
Going to the ACC, number 16 Duke at number 4 Florida State, 7:30 ABC. Look, Duke has surprised a lot of people. They haven't had Riley Leonard at quarterback, their superstar. Florida State's been cruising along here. At some point, they're going to get challenged. I actually don't think it's this week, though. This is a big, big test for Duke on the road. Riley Leonard or not, this is a tall task. I think the Seminoles just absolutely wax Duke in this one.
Now, I will say that, unlike the Penn State-Ohio State game, which you saying Ohio State big, I will say Florida State big. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think, at least by 3 scores.
Number 14, Utah, at number 18, USC, 8 p.m. Fox. And Gene, for some reason, I think I picked Notre Dame last week, and you told me that's why you keep losing to me, because you picked the games like this. And, what happened? That's right. Notre Dame beat the living breaks off of USC. But anyways, we'll see if we differ here. Just thought I'd throw that out there. USC, bounce back week for them. I will go with them. Look, the defense is atrocious. It really is. I don't see Caleb Williams losing 2 games in a row and looking as bad as he did 2 games in a row. Plus, look, Utah's a good team, but on the road, they are a completely different team. They're not near as good as they are at home at Rice-Eccles. So I'm going USC.
Listen, I'm going to go with USC because I think that they need to respond. I think they
have
to bounce back. And after what happened after that thrashing last week, I think Utah's going to be in trouble because they're going to have to rebound and rebound in a big way. So I'm going with USC.
The Houston Heave, how does it define this West Virginia football team? Is it something that's going to rally them and take them to new heights that they've never been to under Neal Brown? Or is it going to make them crumble and fall back to where they've always been under Neal Brown, which is an average to below average team? What are you going to do, West Virginia? What are you going to do? What are you going to do this weekend when Oklahoma State comes to town on your turf at 3:30 on ESPN? Are you going to prove that you're a contender or a pretender?
I never experienced a loss like that. People talk about the last play, but we had plenty of opportunities to win that game before it should ever got to that point, and we did not. When you lose in that fashion, man, it matters. You know, we're 2-1 in the conference now. We're 4-2, and we'll flip the page over to Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State's one of the hottest teams in the country. And so first thing is there's a little bit of a grieving process that goes through, you know, and I think it's helpful because we had a little bit more time. And so you go through the grieving process, and then once you go through the grieving process, there's this period where you got to take ownership for what is ours. And there's a lot. And listen, credit Houston. That's the best they've played. They played extremely hard. They were hungry. They made the play at the end of the game to win it. And so I'm not minimizing them by any means, but we lost the game. We lost the game, and we didn't lose the game just on that one. I can go through probably 15, and that's what I did earlier this morning is I went through about 15 plays on offense where we lost the game, went through about 20 plays on defense, and about 6 on special teams where we lost the game. And so then you go through the ownership, and then it's about the response. You know, so there's processes to it. And so we went through the ownership today, and now we're going to deal with the response. You can't control what happens all the time, but you can control your response. So our response is we better fight, and we better put better stuff on tape, or it's going to be a long year.
All right, man. This is a tough one, Gene. This is going to be very tough. Oklahoma State, like I said, they've been playing much better football of late. West Virginia, you worry about how they respond from that loss a week ago. Look, I said it last week that if you didn't want me to pick West Virginia, I won't, because that's just how this thing has been working for me this year, right?
Right.
I picked against West Virginia for TCU, didn't work. Picked against them against Texas Tech, it didn't work. I picked them to beat Houston, it didn't work. So maybe for the fans here, maybe I should just go with Oklahoma State. I feel bad because I feel like I got the hex right now, but I'm going to pick West Virginia because I said 3 weeks ago I was going to pick them against Houston and pick them against Oklahoma State. I'll hold true to my word and hope that I'm not cursing this team. I'm going to West Virginia and a tight one, low-scoring game. We'll say it lives in the 20s. I haven't figured out my score just yet.
Listen, you already know I'm going West Virginia, but here's the thing. We have to respond, and we will respond because we can respond. West Virginia.
Short, simple, sweet. I like it. West Virginia getting the dub, getting back to 5-2 on the year, 3-1, more importantly, in Big 12 conference play. So, again, West Virginia, Oklahoma State this Saturday, 3:30 on ESPN. We'll have the Mountaineers Now post-game show for you here on our YouTube channel as well as on our site at Mountaineers Now. Hit that subscribe button and give us a like as well. Again, drop your picks in the comment section below for a chance to win a Eugene Napoleon autographed picture. And that'll do it for us here today. So thank you guys for watching. That's Eugene Napoleon. I'm Schuyler. You've been watching the Walkthrough Game Day Show presented by Country Roads Air Duct Cleaning. Take me home to comfort.